Hello and welcome to the Legends Podcast. I'm Jeremy, and Dylan is returning again. And we have Steven. Steven, why don't you introduce yourself?
What's up? I'm Steven. I do a podcast on iTunes and Stitcher and Google Play called the Vundacast or the Voondacast. There's no real correct pronunciation. It's a made-up word. And I also have a little website called Vundablog.com and a few Twitters and Instagrams and Facebook pages and stuff like that. But I'm basically just a nerd in Miami. Coming up in the world, as they say. You want me to give the origin story here at this point, or
Yeah, why don't you
go into that? Cool.
Yeah.
So I am a lifelong Star Wars fan. The youngest of four brothers, and around the time my parents got a Costco card and bought the Costco trilogy of the OT box set, I would just watch it in our van nonstop, the original trilogy, and play Han Solo in the back with whatever baseball jacket I had on. I read the Tales from Jabba's Palace and Bounty Hunters and Tales from Mos Eisley Cantina anthology books, the Heir to the Empire trilogy. Also got read up. Played a lot of Star Wars video games, Super Nintendo, Super Star Wars games, Knights of the Old Republic 1 and 2. What's this called? Republic Commando. I loved when that came out during the Xbox days of Attack of the Clones. I've seen basically. I saw the re-release in the '90s on their opening weekends of the original of the special edition original trilogy, and I've also been to every opening weekend of Star Wars. Next year, I booked my plane tickets for Star Wars Celebration 2019.
Nice.
I'm married to a Raylo wife who is also on my podcast, Danielle, and we had a Star Wars wedding and a Star Wars marriage proposal, and we own so many Star Wars Legos that sometimes I look at it and I'm like, I guess this is like my second retirement fund because there's thousands of dollars of Star Wars Legos over there.
Mm-hmm. Lego does better than stock.
Oh my god. I have a couple of Harry Potter sets that I bought specifically for that reason. So I hope you're right, my friend. I hope Lego becomes the new Bitcoin one day. That's the dream.
Oh, it is. There's
yeah.
I follow the Lego market, secondary market, and literally within within a couple of years of a Lego set going out of print, it basically doubles its MSRP in value on the secondary market.
You can't get that type of interest rate growth in something math.
Yep. So this is the tip of the day. Buy Lego.
Yeah.
Buy Lego sets.
This is the hot deal, guys. Yeah.
Oh god, that reminds me of before we get into the solo chat, I was giving Dylan so much shit because he was complaining about the new X-Wing release. Do we want to talk about that, Dylan? How first world you actually are?
Okay, you don't want to talk about first world problems. You make videos where you complain about the packaging of CD and DVD cases.
I've filmed another one today.
Called disc case problems, okay? But yes, based on promotional images, they've Lego has made another X-Wing, miniature size X-Wing, but this is the first proper A New Hope X-Wing or OT X-Wing. They've made first order ones, but not an OT X-Wing in I want to say nearly 10 years. That was in proper miniature scale. And they unveiled a new helmet mold design that's technically it's the same design. It looks like the ones that they do on the with the Resistance ones.
Mm-hmm.
But they, I don't know. It's a new mold, and I don't like it because it's change, and I don't like change. Grumpy about it. Also, the nose is a little bit stubby, and it looks kind of small compared to other comparable sets of its size. So That was my gripe.
Dylan, it's not about size; it's about how you use it.
Okay.
I'm just saying. All right, let's get into our solo discussion. So, as usual, Dylan didn't see the movie, so he's just our
He's a pure virgin. I love it.
Yes, I'm just here to ask questions because I don't know anything about this movie and to react to what they tell me.
I love it. You like who is it? It's Larry King. He never reads like a guest book before he interviews them because he wants to, ask the questions that like a child and like someone who's learning about something would ask. So you're Larry King right now, sir.
Sure, I'll take that, I guess.
that's a lot more polite than Dylan.
And he's used to. Oh man.
So
Well, he's old, so he'll probably sexually harass us, I guess.
Steven,
Yeah.
overall, what did you think of this movie? We'll start.
I like this movie very, very much. I would probably put it in my top 6 Star Wars movies of all the Star Wars movies that have been released in the theaters.
So 6 out of 11.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. Is it 11? 11? Does that count the Bad
It's counting-
Clone Wars movie as well?
Yeah, that's counting the
Are we
TC.
counting Ewoks
Okay.
movies, though?
No, Ewoks
Holiday
movies.
special. Are we just talking theatrical releases?
Yeah, theatrical releases.
Theatrical release. No animated, no droids, none of that stuff.
So, yeah,
Not that it would change the ranking very much, but
yeah, about middle of the pack.
but I really liked it. I thought it was fun. I thought it was a very Ron Howardy movie in that it didn't have, a lot of humor. But I love that, the guy who wrote Empire Strikes Back, Lawrence Kasdan, the guy who really put his stamp on Han Solo as a character, got to celebrate the character that he helped make so iconic. And I thought he really, from a story perspective, I thought they really nailed the perfect balance of like changing things, but also honoring a lot of stuff at the same time. And I like that they walked that balance, even if they didn't go to the places or locations or whatever that I was kind of expecting or hoping or that sort of thing.
Okay, well, let me get into this right here. So overall, I enjoyed this movie. I enjoyed it more than Last Jedi. I'm just going to make that clear. I think this was a much more solid film than Last Jedi and actually had progression. There were some things that I was shocked they didn't put in, which I was happy. But what they did put in, there were a couple things I thought were really funky. And the cameo at the end, which we'll get to, was really bizarre. But the Falcon, my biggest problem with the film besides the cameo was the Falcon looked too clean. Because it doesn't make any sense that it would get that filthy. And
Wookiee moved in.
Yeah, but still, that was a little. The Falcon just looked too clean. I mean, I expected it to look different because Lando's a different guy. He's not a slob like Han is, and I get that the Falcon would look somewhat shitty in Han's hands, but it was a little too sterile.
Other starships we've seen in the trilogy, some people keep their starships, mint condition, very clean, very nice. Other people, ride them to the ground like Han Solo does.
Yeah.
I thought it was a character decision, and they made the Millennium Falcon a character in the movie, and their arc for the characters in the movie was the arc of the Falcon becoming the Falcon we know, or getting closer to the Falcon we know.
Wrecked in that nebula. That was pretty. That was pretty.
Doing the Kessel Run. I'm curious to know what Dylan has been spoiled of so far without even like.
Well, I have actually a question about the Falcon and how it portrays in the original Legends, when that was canon before it was taken over. The Millennium Falcon was originally Lando's,
Yes.
obviously, and he won won it, and I think that, and he won it from it. And when you say like it's clean, I actually don't have personally a problem with that because Lando seems like the kind of guy he's a ladies' man. He's always out to impress.
Yeah, no.
So he'd be the one that would spiff up, shiny it up, make it look nice and presentable. So I guess I don't really have a problem with that aspect.
It's just the stark contrast of how they looked in comparison. That it just, to me, it wasn't believable that Han would wreck it that bad in that short of a time.
But it's 10 years before A New Hope. You don't think in a decade he's gonna make the white walls into brown walls when a Wookiee is living in them?
He's smoking cigarettes in there,
Bro, Han is dealing spice around the galaxy, smuggling, man. You don't know. There could have been a loose Minoc in there, and it pooped everywhere. Like
that is true, but there was some. Well, let's get into what wasn't in the film.
Well, I think, we asked a question about what's been spoiled for me. What's basically been spoiled is the cameo at the end, though I had actually heard rumors that was going to happen, so that was just confirming things I'd heard before the movie came out. Not much else. Again, I heard about the final journey that it makes and it becoming absolutely trashed, and a few other cameo references to things that happened in the book, in the old books, that were kind of offhandedly mentioned. But that is about it on what has been ruined or spoiled for me.
Okay,
so no Jabba.
No Jabba, no Boba.
No Boba Fett either. I was shocked, but I was okay with it because they're doing this Boba Fett movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and truly in the Boba Fett movie we'll get Salacious Crumb at last, the return.
There we go. That's what we always.
I was hoping for Maz Kanata. That was my big prediction before the movie.
Yeah, that was weird.
That was a missed opportunity.
If they made a second one of these, I think Maz would show up.
I gotta imagine that's like surefire. She's got to show up. Also, someone that could show up was Holdo from Rebels. Not Holdo, sorry, Hondo, the smuggler.
Oh yeah, there was no Hondo.
And they do have a live action Hondo costume because they just showed it for Galaxy's Edge. They showed like a photo of like Chewie and Hondo talking. So they have like a costume that looks legit live action Hondo. So that was on the table as well, but they didn't, pull that reference out of their bag.
That might be for the Boba Fett movie that they'll have Hondo in there.
That also might have been something that
they've had dealings together before, if I'm not mistaken, in Clone Wars.
Also, I was hoping for even if Boba Fett wasn't going to be in it, IG-88, Dengar. I mean, Rogue One
would have made sense.
They name dropped Bosk, but seeing Bosk or like Bosk staring down Chewie, some really juicy fan thing like that would have been hot. Like just Chewie and Bosk arm wrestling. Give me that, please.
Or just a fight, like a brawl. Because Bosk hunts Wookiees. That's what he does it as a pastime,
That's what all Trandoshan's do. It's like a sport to them.
Well, yeah, that's because their planets are next to each other.
The one fault I do see in the movie that I think is a Ron Howard thing and probably a problem with all the production woes and stuff is that there is a version of a Han Solo movie where by the end of the movie the relationship between Han and Chewie would make me cry, okay? And the fact that this movie wasn't played in a way where, like, it's a love story between Han and Chewbacca becoming best friends, even though they do become sort of best friends in the movie, I thought they didn't, they could have really, you could have tore people's hearts out with, like, the sappiness in that.
They also sappy with Chewbacca when Han finds him in chains and stuff,
which was awesome. It was so dramatic,
really good. Yeah,
and that scene especially, I love how it takes you through a whole series of emotions.
Mhm.
where all of a sudden it's like mystery, and then it's like dread, and then it's disgusting, and then you go to feeling bad, and then it goes to funny. Like it takes you through a whole emotional range that I thought was really special in this movie.
Yeah. Let's see. Ooh,
What else was left on the table?
what else was left that they didn't put in there?
Well,
Because they hit.
there's a version of this movie hypothetically where you see Han, becoming in debt to Jabba. So this is half of his origin or half of his way to A New Hope.
Yeah, I'm glad they didn't put that in there because that just would have been too much for what they did. Because there was a lot going on in this movie, because this movie actually felt like a setup in the last 10 minutes, which I did not like. I thought the last 10 minutes was a little much, except for the inevitable winning the Millennium Falcon from Lando.
I thought that was too rushed. I would have wanted them to let the winning the Falcon be like a bigger set piece, because I was kind of annoyed that the movie didn't actually, teach us or like show Sabak playing in like an interesting dramatic way.
So one of the big EU things that George put in place before Disney bought out that game, we all know how Han won, but it was never portrayed in any sort of media. It was one of those sacred things. It's like what we don't know Yoda's species. It was one of those things that is sacred and that wasn't touched upon ever. Okay. So the way that they did it in this movie, I thought was okay. There should be a little mystery to it and how Sabak works.
So how did they,
Dylan and I have actually played Sabak.
I played Sabak in the Knights of the Old Republic game.
Yeah.
So there've been versions of it out there.
Like we didn't need a Casino Royale thing going on where we focus way too much on cards.
But I wanted it to have that, if it's going to be an Indiana Jones movie and a Star Wars movie, lean into a little, James Bond. Indiana Jones is just, the James Bond of America in many ways.
So what did they, or how did they portray it then? Because you're making it sound like it was like a 2-minute scene, like where
pretty much. Like,
no, they had a setup scene before that. So the first time you meet Lando, he's gambling away in like basically underground gambling area where they have droid fighting and Sabak play and all that sort of stuff.
And he cheats.
Yeah.
And that's the big thing. He cheats.
And he cheats by just having a card up his sleeve. The right cards of his sleeve. So he does like the most old school Western-y way to cheat is what he does.
And Han
and all these other aliens don't even notice, even though there's one with a giant eye.
Yeah. So I think it was done well. Han gets the upper hand. But the one thing is, I wish they would have focused on just the winning hands, because Han wins with the Idiot's Array in the EU.
Oh.
That's literally the only, because was it Lando has a true Sabak? Is that what it is?
Yeah, Lando had a pure Sabak, and then Han had the Idiot's Array.
Which is what, like a wild card type of land or something like that?
Well, it's where, so Sabak, you need to have a 23, right? Well, you have a 23 or negative 23, depending on what's and what version you're playing. But either one will usually work. Well, the Idiot's Array is when you have the Idiot card, which is a 0 card, the 2 card, and the 3 card. If you have the 0, the 2, and the 3 card, then you win. Then you not only win the Sabak pod, but that is seen as better than a pure Sabak. And the reason is because in the Sabak deck, there are only it's like a 76 card deck. There's 1 through 15, and then there's 4 copies of 1 through 15, and then there's 8 copies of essentially face cards that have weird values. One of them is the Idiot, and there's only 2 of each of the copies. So yeah, there's 2 cards in the entire deck that are the Idiot, and then you need a 2, and then you need a 3. That's the Idiot's Array.
So you'd be getting 2 jokers. Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
That's badass.
Yes.
That is a cool little, writery sort of thing.
Yeah,
But in a feature film, they would have spent a minute explaining that, or they would have had a weird line where Lando would have been like, "I lost with the idiots array."
yeah, that was probably
you know what I mean.
happened.
They had so that was like the setup in the middle of the movie. Lando doesn't come in till like I feels like over an hour into the movie. Maybe I don't know. I didn't really time it out, but it's a long time before Lando shows up, even though he's in all the marketing. Like,
yeah, but Lando's a very minor character in this, which
medium, medium minor, yeah.
Because like when the main, so the plot of this movie, so I can explain it to Dylan. After Han escapes Corellia, which is a giant shithole in this universe.
It's basically like what's it called? Like England, like children enslaved, and it's just like factory dystopian, production, industrial nightmare.
It's not like it is in the EU. It's
Okay.
very different, which was nice that they didn't rip that off. But his backstory is he's a thief, just like he is in the EU, but to this weird centipede woman, which was a really cool Muppet. It wasn't CG. That was nice.
That was really cool. I like that. And there's also like a really cool joke where he's trying to outsmart the giant centipede woman, and he pretends a rock is a thermal detonator, and all the stupid kids around him are like running away because they know he's gonna get in trouble. And he's like trying to be like, smart ass. And she's like, I know that's a rock. And then he hits a window above her and she does like a vampire thing and like powers away. Also, what we don't realize till later in the movie is that we saw basically the moment after he got the dice that he's going to put on the Falcon that they had in The Last Jedi.
Well,
He pulled off a car. He pulled it off a car that he had just stolen. And it sort of becomes to represent. Yeah.
That are a really weird plot device in Last Jedi that doesn't work.
No, it totally works. It's a visual symbol. And it's two things bound together that are totally random, that could turn out good or could turn out bad. All right? It's a symbol for Han Solo wanting freedom, for wanting belonging. It's a visual metaphor, and it's also a convenient thing that Disney can mass produce and sell to you.
That's it. Yeah. He, as a kid, he and his girlfriend at the time, are basically they're child slaves to this crime lady, and they try to escape Corellia. They get separated. He ends up joining the Imperial Academy, which is really glanced over in this. When I talk about
Academy days, yeah.
And when I talk about the Han Solo book I'm reading right now, that's EU, I will compare and contrast that.
Yeah, that's essentially kind of the same that they did in the EU, where
but
he
it's
was in the Empire.
In this, and ends up he gets kicked out of the academy and ends up being a grunt.
Well, before he gets kicked out, as he's entering the academy, he has a moment where an Imperial officer asks him his name, and he can only give his first name, Han, which is kind of similar to how Rey could only give her first name and doesn't have a last name. Well, and then the Imperial is just like, all right, we'll call you Solo. And it felt very like Family Guy-ish. Like I was waiting for Peter Griffin to next to me to be like, that's the name of the movie.
That was funky. Mainly because in the EU, he doesn't know, he actually ends up doing research as a child and finds out that his family are kind of wealthy on Corellia, but he's been distantly related to them.
Mm-hmm.
And his cousin's a giant asshole that shows up later in the EU.
Well, they
shows
changed
up
all
a few
of
times
that.
and becomes an asshole.
He was an asshole to begin with. If you read A.C. Crispin's books, he was psychotic.
He was always an asshole, but he becomes an even bigger asshole later.
Yeah, because isn't he in Court Trip of Princess Leia? He's an asshole in that.
So Han's a second child? He's the youngest?
No, he is. It's his cousin.
It's his cousin, and he's his cousin to giant douche.
Okay. Well, later in the movie, they say that Han did know his dad at one point, and that his dad built CT freighters like the Millennium Falcon, and that Han has always dreamed of owning the type of ship that his dad built.
Yeah,
In
which
a very like Star Trek, 2009 sort of way, which I dug because I love Star Trek.
that he ends up running into Woody Harrelson and their gang, and they're trying to pull a con off, but they're disguised as mud troopers, which are the new stormtroopers of this movie.
One of
To
two
sell
new
toys.
stormtroopers this year. And then there's we meet like basically the first crew that Han hangs with, which is a sparky little alien. I think his name was Brio or Grio or something, or Brioche or something like that. I don't know. But he's voiced by Jon Favreau. Yeah, he's voiced by Jon Favreau, and he's one of the first aliens who like just other than Yoda that just speaks straight up English, and he gives a lot of like jokes and sort of like shows Han how to be a smartass.
He's the comic relief for a little while.
And then Beckett, the Woody Harrelson character, who everyone thought was going to be like Han's dad or something, he is apparently in a relationship with Thandie Newton from Westworld.
Yeah,
and
that's where I remembered her from. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, and there's Michael. I gotta let him in.
What? Welcome to
the
the
other
show.
Fucking 30 minutes late.
Nightwing in the chat. No, we have not gotten to the cameo yet.
He's 30 minutes great. Don't worry about that.
Cameo, but I wanted Michael to be here for the cameo. So go sit over here, you shithead.
So this is the cameo by Michael now that he's 30 minutes late?
We're getting into the plot of Solo.
He is the Darth Maul of this film. Oh my god.
Let's talk
Well,
about
it's actually
Darth Maul. So Darth Maul's in this movie, and it's one of the worst things I've ever seen on film.
Bro, Darth Maul has been long-awaited return. I used to pray that Grievous was gonna open his mask and be Darth Maul beneath the mask. Okay? Darth Maul has been a long time coming, son. People have been wanting this.
Not like this.
Not like what? He's the head of a crime organization. He bumped himself up to boss level, and Palpatine's in charge, and Palpatine double-crossed him. Bro, he's got a vendetta, man.
I get that, and I get when good Darth Maul coming back, Rebels season 2 finale. That was handled a lot better.
But that Darth Maul is the Darth Maul after this Darth Maul.
I know, but it like
gotta get there. He's still grumpy. He can't be so clever and philosophical.
I would have been okay with it until he pulled out the lightsaber and did a spinny thing, because in Rogue One, when Vader pulled out the lightsaber, everyone got excited and wet their pants. So we had to have a lightsaber in Star Wars, and it had to be spun around and obnoxious. That was like in my top 5 most obnoxious things I've ever seen on film, which a good chunk of those are from the Hobbit movies. This ranks number 5.
He was like a middle schooler trying to like look cool. He's like, "Ooh, I have the shiny sword.
Well,
I can spin
I'm assuming it was. I'm assuming it was Ray Park, right?
No,
it was the Rebels and Clone Wars talking, and he's CG, so which looked funky.
It looked bad.
It looked little video gamey, but I think that was just because it was a hologram, and always in holograms, things don't always, they don't appear 100. It's not an accurate representation of what he looks like fully composed in the film.
Yeah,
was it as bad as Peter Cushing and Carrie Fisher in Rogue One?
Carrie Fisher in Rogue One looked great.
Carrie Fisher looked like Mr. Clean's daughter in Rogue One. Tarkin looked okay.
No. I would marry Mr. Clean's daughter.
He looked all right.
Yeah, about half the time it was like, oh, Peter Cushing came back from the dead. And then some of the time it looked like a video game. Mm-hmm. But like Carrie Fisher's just felt tacked on. This felt tacked on.
Bro, dude, what would have been the impact of her talking to the head of her criminal organization and it's Jabba or it's Shinzon, or what would have been, would that have gotten the same type of reaction as Darth Maul? No. Nobody.
I thought it was going to be Vader, in all honesty.
Same, actually.
I thought it was going to be the Empire is controlling these crime syndicates to get their way.
That's too
It doesn't make a
that's
whole
so
lot
lazy.
of sense, but
But
Star Wars doesn't always make a whole lot of sense in my defense. But I thought it was going to be Vader. I mean,
I think it's kind of sort of just trying to be like, this is every Star Wars movie has a the government system and then some sort of rebellion taking place against it. Darth Maul's is just another rebellion, but we thought that these were just two totally different systems. You know what I mean?
Which going to the rebellion aspect of this at the end with the Marauders.
Enfys Nest. Big
really,
reveal.
I really liked that angle they did, because one of them I'm almost certain is the same character that's part of the Saw Gerrera's partisans in Rogue One. That would make sense.
I missed that. It started cutting out. What'd you say?
Oh, with the Marauders, there was that one alien that looks like the alien from Rogue One that's part of Saw Gerrera's second in command.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, the guy with the mask, right?
Yeah.
Oh, totally. Yeah, I see that. I totally see that. What I thought was confusing was I thought for a second that Enfys Nest, because she had curly hair and stuff, and she looked like mixed race, that she was the daughter of Beckett and Maul. Who had a relationship earlier or something. But then they didn't go that way. But I just thought the mask reveal that it was actually might mean something. Also, people were hyper speculating over that character because she has sort of the same eye line as Kylo Ren's mask. In that she has the visor straight line.
Yeah, but the story group, the way it is, they might.
Yeah, but now knowing that those characters aren't based on being pure evil pirates, they're crusaders, they're trying to be liberators, that kind of gives a different perspective to Kylo Ren's character. These people in the story group, they build stories in very detailed, minute ways. Okay,
well,
when Lucas put together and started putting out all of the EU novels and stuff like that, Lucas gave a lot of freedom to these authors to write the way that they thought the story should be told.
Yeah, but he always signed off on it.
Yeah, but I don't think that means that he read all 300 pages of that novel.
No,
I think that means somebody talked him through it.
Dylan and I met Dave Wolverton, who wrote Courtship of Princess Leia. He wrote a lot of the young adult stuff back in the 90s and into the early 2000s.
Mm-hmm.
We met him at Gen Con a few years ago, and he said that George Lucas sent him a letter saying that he read his novel and he liked it. It was right around the time he started filming Phantom Menace that he stopped reading the novels, but he read all of the comics, and I do believe he still reads the Marvel comic books that are coming out now. But he was always read everything. In fact, he was so in love with the West End game stuff that he gave it to Timothy Zahn to write the Thrawn trilogy. There was a whole lot of things that he read, but even if he...
I didn't say he wasn't invested and didn't, spend time with it.
Yeah, Lucas.
I'm just saying there's no way he could remember or recite everything in all of the EU books the way you guys can.
Most of the story group now was part of a group called the Holocron that did all that for him. Once the prequels became a thing, they created the Holocron, which is what Wikipedia is based around, or was based around. Now Wikipedia is kind of a mess. It needs more admins to sort of decide what's new canon and what's legends.
And fix articles on both, because there's articles in canon that have legends content. There's articles in legends that is canon. It's a whole mess.
It needs someone like me to be
Yeah.
paid a good like $25 an hour to read
Also,
shit.
also, if it's called Wikipedia, it's lazy if they don't have, a Wookiee translation on everything they have.
They
Come on,
should.
work on it. Let's do it. Grrr. I can type those R's and G's.
Can we get a full transcript of the holiday special, the part where they're only talking in
That should
Sherry
be the
Wook?
first
Well,
order of business if we're
that-
doing Wookiee translating.
Yeah, that's the source material from which to build from.
Also, I want the Wookiee cookbook in
The Wookiee cookie cookbook.
Sherwook. I think that's actually what the language is called.
Yeah,
Like,
Sherry Wook.
Or Shri Wook.
The big thing about Wookiees that bothered me in this movie was before the film, I had set myself up for the expectation that they might give Chewbacca like a big like kiss at the end or something, since we know that Chewbacca in the holiday special has, a big romance plot. And I wanted them really like, for me, this movie was like the Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back for Chewbacca. And that's what I wanted from it. I wanted more Chewie. And I hope they do sequels just so they have more Chewie. Like, I really hope the sequel is called Chewie, a Star Wars story sequel. Okay?
Yeah, the thing is, this is the first time this is the one thing that the new movies have done pretty well, is they've really started to flush out Chewbacca's character. He just doesn't growl in the background like he did in the original trilogy.
I really like that.
And
They stopped the Wookiee washing him.
Yeah, seriously.
Or that cameo he had in Revenge of the Sith.
Oh yeah, when Yoda climbs on his back and they run around.
Hey, he has an action scene in that movie. Don't call
He
it a cameo.
does.
That's
They
not a
actually
cameo.
had more of an action scene, but they cut it out of the movie.
That's not a cameo. I really, really liked this movie, and I thought that it did a lot to really show, more so than Rogue One, that when the Imperials are in charge of the universe, it's kind of a really shitty place.
Yeah, I mean, Rogue One did it too, but Rogue One's point was to be a war movie. And it focused on how the rebels are doing in this time, not what the common folk or the crime is during this time. So I want to see more films. Like, in all honesty, I really don't care about episode 9 at this point. I want more from like solo movies. Like, I want like this Boba Fett movie. I want to see this underground, like this underworld sort of thing built up.
It's nice to see a movie that isn't just like on the grand scale of, the rebellion against the Empire or whatever. It's nice to just like have a story that's just set in the universe that's not, the grand plot. It's just like, hey, this is the everyday life of the people.
It's not the galaxy is going to end tomorrow unless we take down this super weapon.
Yeah, and that was actually
It's just like my life will end
That's
tomorrow if I don't do this.
I think you're gonna get what you want, because my force-based intuition is that whatever the creators of Game of Thrones are working on for Star Wars will be like villain-based, since they're used to working in those, darker tones and stuff. I think that if there might get finally, that Star Wars Underground sort of, TV show idea or series of film, something like that. I really hope they kind of touch some of the stuff that's in the Shadows of the Empire novel, because it'd be great to see Han Punk Dash Rendar. Also, something that was missing in this movie that was left on the table that I was hoping for was seeing some Rogue One characters like Cassian and K2SO, because it's totally fertile time for them to be able to meet up.
So the story group has already described how Cassian meets K2SO, so it wouldn't make sense to have K2SO in it.
No, I mean just Cassian and Han and Lando. Like, why can't they all just play poker?
Yeah, well, Cassian runs into Lando or something, and Lando screwed him over. That would have been funny.
Like the scene in Rogue One where they bump into oh shoot, I'm forgetting their names.
The people are in the cantina that throw Luke. No, that scene was really.
How could you forget their names? They're wanted on over like 12 planets or something. Come on, bro.
There's
the Empire knows their names.
Systems.
There's like 63 million systems that are in the empire under the empire's jurisdiction. They've only got the death sentence on 12 of them. Okay.
Things in the movie. I thought that the action in the movie, like even though we know that there's not really any stakes, Han and Chewbacca are gonna survive. They're gonna be fine. Lando's gonna be fine. Even though those stakes don't exist, since they didn't have those stakes, they kind of like slaughtered everyone else. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, they fucking killed everyone. Because I think that's what people liked in Rogue One is that everyone died.
But
It's
that
that
bothered
way
me.
of retconning. Why aren't these people mentioned again? Oh, because they all died.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
wondering that because I just finished Last Shot, which is the novel, the adult novel that was it's actually facing backwards over there because I just did film my review for it. But in Last Shot, it's Han and Lando after the Battle of Jakku, which is a couple years after the Battle of Endor.
Mhm.
It's a couple years after the Battle of Jakku. Like Ben's 2, and Han's a family man now, and he has a boring, shitty job.
Mhm.
And Lando is like thinking about settling down, and he has this love interest. It's like interesting. But
And
in
my
this
wife's reading it
story-
right now. She just finished the Leia book, and now she's on to this one.
Okay, it's pretty good. But in it, you have a couple. There's 4 different plots going on. We have the villains plot, which is like right after Revenge of the Sith. We have a Lando plot with L3, and I'm like, why is L3 not involved with Lando anymore? Oh, spoilers! L3 gets wrecked and is now part of the Falcon.
But L3 has been in canon, or they made her a part of old canon, because
Yes.
she's a refurbished astromech droid, and she has an R3 brain, which was always said to be a part of the Falcon in old like compendiums of like the ship diagram and stuff. So I like that they tied her into that. A lot of people, I was battling online because everyone, ruffled. A lot of people got ruffled by her being like, she's basically the activist, like Hermione bot robot of the movie.
I loved it about her. It was different.
It was really fun and it was really cool. And I actually think it was kind of like, a small morality sort of, in the old school Lucas way of her little arc before she got taken out, to kind of show that, like, you can't just start a rebellion and just like think you can cause chaos and everything's going to be fine. And, you're going to get your head blown off.
Yeah, or get blown in half and end up with the torso and head being dragged around.
But she's also in the books too. In that they say that, I believe it's in either the Force Awakens novelization or the Last Jedi novelization, that that R2 speaks with the computer system, and it's sassy and like loves romance and stuff like that.
Yeah, because it gives. It's also to explain why in Empire Strikes Back C-3PO has such a difficulty communicating with it.
It also makes you think possibly maybe L3 was shipping Han and Leia. Like, she purposely wasn't working so that they would hook up in that room, you know what I mean? Like, maybe she's invested in this, in her occupants, since she doesn't have anything else to
and then
really
C-3PO to cock block him.
occupy her full time. He is. He's like, we just gotta go. We're gonna get killed. There's no time for love, Dr. Jones.
God.
I really liked L3 though, and a lot of people got pit. Like, we're trying to paint it like her character like would be like screaming in horror trapped in the Falcon, but it's like she died. She's a robot. She died. It's like they just gave the Falcon like a liver transplant. You know what I mean? With her liver. Like, the droids, like, if you believe that droids have different rights, which they did in A New Hope because they couldn't get in the bar.
Well,
right?
Tatooine's a shithole.
And that place is a shithole too.
Tatooine has slavery. Has human slavery on it, you know? Like, Tatooine doesn't give a fuck.
You shouldn't judge other cultures, you know?
I know, I'm being very ethnocentric right now.
Come on. Tatooine culture is unique of its own. Jabba would take offense to this.
Right. They have You know, they only conscript kids to play an extremely dangerous sport that ends in a lot of them getting killed. But
Also,
No.
this movie reinforces a theme in the greater trilogy, which is that all of the sort of romantic pairings in the movies are between people from disparate backgrounds. Anakin was a slave who became somebody religious. Padme is somebody of privilege who became a queen and a politician. And those unlikely people hooked up. Han is now a scoundrel, and he was basically a slave boy as well. And Leia was obviously a princess, and Kylo Ren is a fancy space prince, and Rey is scavenger scum. You know, it's all a part of weaving all those grander themes together. I really feel like Disney's version of Star Wars is like a lot of people with a lot of English degrees really trying to get an A+ from a really snooty professor, which is
well,
what
I
I
would
want.
argue-
That's what I want.
I'd argue the fact that Princess Leia ceased being a princess once her planet was blown up, because then she was no longer princess of anything.
No, because they're still Alderaanian people. Like
She becomes a general. You can't stop her from taking control of shit, man.
Oh, I don't doubt she wasn't a general and a military leader. It's just like you
The Force
kind of
wills
have to
it.
have you kind of have to have territory to rule in order to be considered of royalty. You know.
What I was trying to remember, because I remember when I read the Heir to the Empire trilogy, Lando has his own shit, what I think was called the Lady Luck.
Mhm.
Right?
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if any of the characterization, I have to go back and recheck it, if any of the characterization of the Lady Luck sort of fits how he treated the Falcon.
It was really similar. Again, he wanted sleek or extremely something he could like walk into a spaceport and boast about, like, oh, look at, I keep my ships fine. It's top of the line, most expensive with all the trimmings, you know. And in a pinch, you know, it can launch a torpedo at you, but you know, that's only I only have that for practical reasons. Those launches are well hidden.
Yeah. Another awesome part of the movie was that it's very Raiders of the Lost Ark, in that Han basically screws up every mission he's on in the movie and stumbles himself into another mission. Like I appreciated the story keeping on finding a way to do that over and over and over again. Like that was enjoyable to me.
So, what were your guys' opinions on the established characters that we know how they are? We've seen them in countless movies being portrayed by newer, younger actors. How do you think the actors doing Han, Lando, and Chewie performed in the role and keeping the characters consistent? Do you think they did a good job or
incredible job? I was shocked because we all heard the news that what's the guy who played Han? What's his name?
Alden Ehrenreich.
He couldn't act. According to Disney, they were having difficulty. They had to get an acting coach. Ron Howard.
Supposedly, he had a Ace Ventura Pet Detective performance under Lord and Miller, is what they said. That it was very much like, you know, like very slapsticky with his smart aleckiness. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and he.
But
did
that is
good
not
job.
what we got at all. We got a very, you know, controlled. Like they played him very much in the cool aspect ratio. Like they were definitely going for more Captain Kirk than anything else. But it felt very Han Solo.
And
did
Lando
JJ
was
have a writing
really
credit?
good. Donald Glover did a really good job as Han Solo, not Han Solo, Lando Calrissian. It was very
It
believable.
was good. There's also a moment where they explain why Lando says Han instead of Han when he first meets him. And Han's like, my name is Han. It's pronounced Han. And Lando's like, all right, Han. And then he's like, okay, whatever. So I thought that was a nice little tidbit to throw out there that was fun and like really showed their character and showed like, you know, like in that one little interaction, you see that Lando is trying to make himself cooler than fucking Han. And I appreciate that. The one thing I thought was kind of weird in the movie that I thought needed a little more explanation, which I guess because of the tease at the end of the movie is something they're going to give us in the future, which is what happens to the Queen of Dragons, Amelia Clark Kira, in the 3-year span from going to slave girl to second in command of a crime yacht of pleasure.
It will probably be in a book. There's a whole bunch of books that are now scheduled to come out in the fall and then in the winter.
Which I think it's pretty clear in the movie that, because a lot of the criticism I've seen have been people saying that Kira being a love interest for Han devalues his love for Leia and their relationship.
No, but in the EU, there was a similar love interest that throughout the AC Crispin Han Solo trilogy that he has a girlfriend.
And isn't in the current Marvel comics, doesn't he have a wife that's black?
Okay, Sana Star
or something?
Asshole that they got married to con someone out of a planet.
Yeah, but legally you got a wife.
They weren't really together. They talk about that actually in Last Shot. Because I don't like Sana Staros as a character. I find her really obnoxious. I was hoping, because like the way I'm going to disclaimer, most of you already know this. I don't like the new Marvel comics of Star Wars for the most part. I think they're very poorly written, and I think they're very gimmicky and junk. They don't take any risks.
I wouldn't say they're gimmicky junk. I just feel like the Dark Horse comics, they had such leeway. I feel like the Marvel comics are just like very just constant, like J.J. Abrams style, where it's always the constant tease. You know what I mean? They're always just building towards a tease, and never really just letting loose.
But there's funky choices they've done in there. Like Luke and Vader have a confrontation in the second issue. That was bad. I mean, Splinter of the Mind's Eye, the first EU novel, the climax of the book is Vader and Luke and Leia all fight, but the thing is that there's a what is the crystal called, Dylan?
I don't know.
It's like it's a really big kyber crystal that's
He's not a jeweler. He doesn't know.
I actually haven't read that book.
He met Alan Dean Foster and got me a signed copy of the book. Like,
how could you forget? You're breaking his heart.
But like, it's a giant kyber crystal that has the Force, and Ben Kenobi comes through and actually gives Luke and Leia enhanced Force power so they can fight Vader. It's explained, but Luke ends up kind of not really holding his own against Vader.
So he gives them like +2 Force mana versus Vader,
right?
From beyond the grave.
Like,
But at the same time, power and skill are two different things. You can be OP as hell, like Anakin, but you can have terrible skill and still get beat in a lightsaber fight.
Question, because me and my wife were speculating on this, and I wonder if this has any anchor in any other Star Wars canon. On the dark side of the spectrum, between a master and apprentice, the master is siphoning or getting some sort of power from having an apprentice, right? Like through the Force. Like there should be some sort of symbiotic
to a
force going on, right?
With the rule of 2, because I just read the Darth Bane books, and in the Darth Bane books, Darth Bane gets rid of the Brotherhood of Darkness and submits the rule of 2. And mainly they stay 2 because multiple apprentices would rise up and kill the master, and the dark side would be tainted and not as good.
Yeah, you can't get that pure dark side if everyone's trying.
His philosophy was
cut up the good stuff.
Him and his apprentice weren't powerful enough to stop the Jedi, so his philosophy was, because his apprentice was like 8 when he took her on, and I'm gonna teach this person everything I know until they become powerful enough to defeat me. Then she's going to do the same, and every single line of Sith is going to become more powerful than the next until we can get to a Sith who is powerful enough to actually take on and defeat the Jedi. That Sith ended up being Palpatine. But that was kind of his philosophy of. It wasn't that the masters got power from the apprentice. It was that the apprentice learned from the masters until they became more powerful and would challenge them. And the problem is, Jeremy said,
after
when
a
they're-
while, it was also the amount of riches they got, because Bane becomes very wealthy by the time the third book, Dynasty of Evil, is out there, and he uses his wealth to gain more knowledge. And each Sith it's a little hazy as to the Sith line up until Darth Tenebris, which is Palpatine's master's master. He invested a lot into Bith science, which is where you get your cloning aspects and why the clone army exists. And then Plagueis kills Tenebris, and Plagueis sort of continues that, but also he takes on Palpatine, and Palpatine becomes the senator because Palpatine becomes an orphan, because I won't spoil it because it's a really good book.
Okay,
That
cool.
Dylan hasn't read yet.
Okay.
Oh, I've read Plagueis.
Have you read it finally?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so
That reminds me, in Solo, there's a cool little Palpatine cameo in the beginning when he goes into the Imperial like recruitment sort of area. There's like a video playing that's voiced over by Palpatine that is also has like the Imperial March playing in the promotional video.
yeah,
where it's basically like join the Empire type of thing.
it reminded me of a lot of Starship
Yeah, cool.
Troopers. Like-
Totally, it
like
was
a good,
super
in a
Starship
good
Troopers.
way. It's Starship
Hell
Troopers.
yeah. Hell yeah! Come join Darth Vader's Roughnecks and learn your place. If you don't get force choked first.
I'm sorry, but this is the second podcast you've been on, Michael, where we reference Starship Troopers. Because I do another show, not to plug my own show, but I'm going to do it anyway.
Do
called
it.
Peddlers, where our other friend, another person named Dylan, who's a pain in my ass, is on there. And he and I talk about life stuff, and we had Michael on there, and we talked about his dad. And then we ended up talking about Starship Troopers on there. So-
I love Starship Troopers. Paul Verhoeven is one of my favorite directors to watch his movies and just laugh and cringe and enjoy.
Starship Troopers or RoboCop, which is better?
Which is better, Starship Troopers or RoboCop? I'm not a huge RoboCop guy. I want to say Total Recall, man. What's wrong with you? That's the best Paul
God, I
Verhoeven
forgot that was
movie.
him.
Okay, get your ass to Mars. Three-titted aliens. That's what it's about. Mutants. Come on, whorehouses. That's what Mars is about.
I'm
That's
waiting
Paul
for them to
Verhoeven.
remake Starship Troopers and ruin it like they did with Total Recall and RoboCop.
Back in the day when I video gamed a lot and stuff, my favorite thing to say to people when I would like jump and surprise attack them and kill them was the end of Total Recall. Arnold Schwarzenegger chops off Michael Ironside's arms in an elevator, and he goes, "See you at the party, Richter." And that is like for me, that's the climax of the film.
No, when everyone's eyes come out of their heads and it's super gross, and how do their eyes get back in their heads?
Those are just sprinkles on the sundae. Okay, the ice cream is Michael Ironside thinking about his girlfriend getting pounded by Arnold Schwarzenegger. Okay, that is the ice cream of that film. And in many ways, I think that Han Solo in the next movie is going to be thinking about if Dryden pounded on Kira, because they definitely had some deep connection. I feel like these Star Wars movies are kind of about people who are surviving like child abuse and dealing with like trauma.
Oppression.
Yeah, but they're also dealing with like trauma and like, trauma from being in like bad relationships, abusive relationships. And I think we're going to learn more about Dryden and how he treated her and why Dryden has scars. And I think that was very purposeful. And that's also symptomatic of stuff that is between Vader and Palpatine and Snoke and Kylo Ren. I think that was just more seeding of those themes into the movie. I thought the Dryden stuff was going to be a lot bigger part of the movie.
Yeah, that was peculiar. Because I really like Dryden, what we got of him, but I
Mhm.
was thinking he was going to be like an Orson Krennic, where we were going to see a lot more of him.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
we didn't, and I was a little bummed out.
But
because
he's a way better villain than Orson Krennic was.
Yeah, well, if you read the books, Orson Krennic's character is explained more in his
Okay.
motivations and his relationship with Galen Erso.
Because whenever I see anybody cosplaying Orson Krennic, I feel like they just want to wear a white cape. Like I feel like that character just survives on his white cape.
I seriously recommend Catalyst, a Rogue One novel.
Okay.
It basically bridges Revenge of the Sith to Rogue One.
So it's in this exact time period.
It's in this and it's in the canon. It's James Luceno. James Luceno is one of my favorite authors. It's one of my
Luceno
it's
can
my
do no
favorite
wrong.
of his new canon books. Also, I recommend reading Tarkin as well because it's referenced in there, and that way you understand what's going on.
And Solo is 10 years from the Battle of Yavin. This movie. It starts 10 years before the Battle of Yavin.
Yeah, can you grab the last
Which
shot
one-
so I can show you on the timeline where this book is?
Yeah, no. But what I'm interested that I think is a nitpicky question because they said this movie is set 10 years before the Battle of Yavin, and there was a 3-year time jump in the movie. Does that mean that the 10 years started after that 3-year time jump,
No,
or before that 3-year time jump?
typically not. No.
Okay.
The majority of a Star Wars film will end up,
How did you feel about not having a crawl, but having a sequence of dystopian description, like it was Escape from New York or something?
I was okay with it because on Rogue One, I made the joke that the Saturn ring was the title crawl, and we just saw it from the wrong way when I saw it initially. But no, I'm fine with it. It's
Did the other thing that I thought I guess someone else who could have stood in for Darth Maul would have been Saw Gerrera. He has robot legs. He's in the time period.
Made sense.
He does shady stuff.
Yeah, but that's a little too crazy for Saw Gerrera. It's a little too evil, I should say, for Saw
It's too
Gerrera.
dark. Okay, yeah,
He's
yeah.
a
You're
crazy
probably right.
fuck. He's a crazy giant asshole that leaves Jin in a fucking bunker.
Mm-hmm. Also, I thought that the story worked so well in that they were always going at they explained that they had that combustible what was it called the fuel basically for what makes it go. So basically, the movie was just a series of events of stealing progressively more of that fuel and failing to do so.
Honestly, say that this is a remake of Road Warrior. Let's be honest.
Of Road Warrior or Raiders of the Lost Ark?
Yeah, it's Raiders of the Lost Ark and Road Warrior in the Star Wars universe.
Yeah, which to me sounds fucking awesome. The more you sell it like that, you got my money every time.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about what this movie made this weekend.
Yeah,
Because
so
that's typically what we do.
Hold on. What was your name again? I'm sorry.
Michael.
Michael. We said we liked the movie, blah blah. In your reaction video, I saw you didn't like the movie.
Okay.
Do you still not like the movie, or has time sort of warmed it up a little bit? Now that you digested a little.
It's not that I didn't like it. I was a little heated when we recorded that. That was right after we walked out of the theater. Overall, I liked the movie. It was really fun. It hooked me. It kept me interested. I liked what it did. It was Maul at the end that just, being myself, someone that I don't read the books, read the comics. I haven't seen what's the shitheads?
Clone Wars.
Yeah, I haven't seen
Shitheads.
the shitheads Clone Wars. So to me, Maul showing up wasn't oh, this is him before he shows up in Rebels. For me, being somebody that only watches the movies, it was, here's just something so the audience will be like, whoa. And
That's a story.
yeah.
We need to learn about that in another movie.
It just once that scene came up, I rolled my eyes and they never came back. Like I was just really, I was pulled out of the experience. I was really into it, and then I saw that, and I kind of just didn't feel like caring about the movie anymore. But with time, like that was just like a reactionary response, and it's diminished. And, you know, in retrospect, I look back and it's like that was one scene that I really didn't like in a movie that I did like.
That you did enjoy. Okay. The one thing about that scene that changed my perspective while I was watching the movie was that scene felt so Kevin Feige, so Marvel to me, like a Marvel movie, that I felt like, oh, this is their Iron Man 1, and Darth Maul is their Nick Fury, and Kira is going to get a chance to be on the evil Avengers. This is awesome.
And that's
Like-
the thing I hate about the Marvel Studios Marvel movies.
Mhm.
It's like the number one thing I fucking hate.
Well, I did not like Infinity War, although I like all the 18 previous Marvel films. So I feel you.
It was okay.
They're not perfect. They're not like that's what pisses me off about the Marvel movies and Disney buying everything and owning everything, is that I feel like all these other studios are bending over backwards to try to become Marvel and become Disney, but that's not the thing that's best, like that's not the thing that is really satisfying, It's not really it's not a sustainable model is really what I'm trying to.
Because
Trying
yeah,
to
I get what you're
articulate.
saying. It's oversaturation, it's fatigue. Like even though it's technically a Marvel movie, and even though it's even though it was technically again a superhero movie, the reason Deadpool, the first one, did so well was because it didn't follow that formula. It was something that the audience at that point hadn't seen yet.
Mhm.
And I think you're getting to a point that they don't need to, that they could be just fine if they let Marvel do Marvel and they did something else that would be unique. Is that what I'm?
That's sort of what I'm getting at, but more so it's sort of like the unrealistic expectation that you should spend $200 million on every movie, and that movie should make $1 billion and lead to another movie that will also make $1 billion because you spent $200 million on it. Like it's not a sustainable model. The model of success that works, it's like dieting, okay? People come up with 1 million diets, all right? But ultimately, what's going to get it done is eating better than you currently do and exercising more sometimes, depending on whatever your, physical thing or whatever is, more than you usually do. Usually that works. Just like with movies, if you spend less money and try to tell a better story, there's a higher chance you'll connect with people and make more money. If you spend less money, you have a chance of making more profit. And not every movie has to make $1 million. Batman Begins made less than Superman Returns when it came out. Okay?
Yeah.
This movie is the best Memorial Day weekend in the last 5 years. And Disney has opened a bunch of bombing franchise sequels on this weekend. This is their hit. They are proud of this. Even if Variety and all the newspapers are saying that it's an underperforming failure, that means it's still performing. It's number one. Not all movies perform. The Mummy made $30 million
This is already beat.
domestically.
That beat that like Saturday.
Yeah, it beat that like Thursday to like Friday at 11 o'clock.
Well, this is the lowest grossing Star Wars film since the Disney buyout. But the thing is, with the Disney buyout, they've all gone down because The Force Awakens was so hyped up because it's been 10 years since there. Well, we don't count Dave Filoni's movie, but it'd been like 10 years since there was a live action Star Wars film. So it was electric when it came out. And then Rogue One made less than that, and Last Jedi made less than Rogue One. It's just what it is. We get a Star Wars movie a
But
year.
on a whole, the film industry made less money, and Disney took a bigger portion of that less money from the film industry. The other problem I think this movie and Disney movies are going to suffer with is 3D ticket sales have been down. And when people don't want to spend $17, sometimes $25 in some places to see a 3D movie, and movie theaters put the 3D movies in all the best time slots on purpose, okay? That deters people, and especially deters people from rewatching and stuff like that. Also, there's a large chunk of people that have Movie Pass that cuts into tickets and stuff like that. This is a problem, or this is a situation more. It's the situation. It's not our problem. It's not our problem. It's a situation. It's a situation that's beyond a lot of people's control and has so many factors.
Well, let's segue into my last point about this film, and it's not about the film itself. We walked in, I was expecting, we were running a little late. I was expecting a full theater until I realized that 8 of the 10 screens in our local movie theater were all showing Solo, and this is like a Disney requirement.
Yeah, and Disney renegotiated to get a larger cut of opening weekend from the movie studios, because it used to be like a 50-50 cut, and Disney said, no, we take like 65 and you guys get 35 on opening weekend. And you have to do 10 screens, or else you don't get any of the Marvel movies, you don't get any of the Pixar movies, you don't get any of the Star Wars movies.
But it's absurd because our theater is a privately owned, it's a local theater. It's a really small theater. And there was only 2 other movies showing.
Yeah.
Deadpool 2, and I don't know what the other one was, but
I think Infinity War was showing in one of them.
Okay.
But yeah, our theater has like 8 rooms, I think. And and 6 of them were fucking a Solo.
Yeah, it was really crazy.
But
it cost me to do a can rant. That's how bad it was.
Yeah. I don't know. My theaters have been packed, so I haven't had that experience.
Ours wasn't. It was over half full.
Would you say?
You also,
I feel like it was a little less than half.
It was less than half because no one was sitting in the front flat area at all. Because
I think there was one person I saw up there.
Because there was a 7:15 3D showing, and then we were at the 8 o'clock 2D because I don't watch 3D.
Mm-hmm.
It hurts my eyes.
We should also say, just for comparison, you guys live in California, but you live north of San Francisco, where if you don't know anything about California geography, there's like almost no one lives north of San Francisco.
Well,
so
people live in Sacramento.
that's about it. But I've actually seen
north of Sacramento.
I have seen on social media a lot of people posting photos of the theaters when they went in, and either they were the only ones or there was like a handful of people in there, which I guess kind of goes into.
I always take that with a grain of salt, because sometimes, that's people
the
trolling
film's fault. I think it's honestly these studios are requiring such a larger cut that they're raising the prices of going to see a movie. And personally, I don't like going to the movie theater. Because home theaters have gotten to a point where it's practically the same.
Well, I agree.
The reason I even go is I go and support. I go and see the blockbuster movies.
Well, I like to really go to the theater so much because I like to see how it plays in the crowd. I like to feel that reaction in a crowd, especially on opening weekends. I like to see how things are playing out to people.
I guess to the news of it on underperforming, which I don't necessarily think it's underperforming. I think it's performing about what Disney expects, which is why I don't think they care about the box office numbers, because there's kind of 2 things that are happening with it underperforming. The first one is it's not a mainline story, Star Wars story. It's a side story. So less people are going to see that. And if you don't believe me, total gross, Force Awakens made $2 billion worldwide. Rogue One next year made $1 billion worldwide, and then The Last Jedi made $1.3 billion. So there was a there was a drip, there was a drop, and then it went back up as soon as the mainline story. So that's working against it. And the other thing is, The Last Jedi did piss a lot of people off, and
I still,
There's-
before we get to Last Jedi, I still think Solo's gonna make $1 billion. It hasn't opened in Japan yet. It's gonna play all summer long, and it's built to be a very enjoyable, easy to watch action movie to take your kids to.
and I do agree. I do agree with that. It's going to make a lot more because it's only everyone's saying like it's only made 100 million. It's like, yeah, well, it's only the opening weekend. Like, give it a couple months and we'll see how it goes from there. But there's those few things that are kind of working against it. It's not a mainline story movie. It's not a mainline Star Wars movie. There is a bit of backlash against The Last Jedi that is causing even less people to go to the movies. And again, it's not been out for that long, and Disney has the problems with the theaters.
Plus, also, people already went to the movies very recently to see Avengers: Infinity War. Like, literally, everyone in the world went to go see Avengers: Infinity War in theater. And some people around the world can only afford to see a movie in a theater once a month. And this movie is barely 4 weeks away from Avengers: Infinity War.
And I feel like there's probably a lot of overlap between the people that would want to see like Solo and the people that probably also want to see Deadpool 2, which I'm pretty sure came out
a week before. That's
so
another.
And actually, also plays into the idea of not having enough money to go see a bunch of movies.
Deadpool 2 got slaughtered against Solo because the original Deadpool
2's rated R. That's what's gonna happen.
but the original Deadpool from the all the movie studios, they're obsessed with retention rates in theaters. So the first Deadpool from the first weekend to the second weekend had like a 50%, 40% drop in the amount of money it made, and that is like really great. The dream is to have 50% retention rate from weekend to weekend to keep on making money, and that's basically their algorithm for figuring it out, and it always works out somehow. Like they're freaking geniuses. And Deadpool 2 dropped 77%.
Holy shit!
Well, part of the problem with Deadpool 2, one of the big things that went for it is because Deadpool at times is a kid-friendly comic. Sometimes Deadpool can be fun with the kids. He's on Ultimate Spider-Man. He makes jokes on there. He had the Your Mama jokes.
There's a baby at my Deadpool screening and like 4-year-olds.
Yeah, and
on opening night,
parents
people take their kids. They dig it.
The Gremlins syndrome, where they thought it was, for some reason, even though it's rated R, they thought, oh, it'll be okay. Maybe it's a little violent, maybe a little bit of swearing for the kids. And then they go in there and there's fucking tits. There's people getting like ripped apart.
There's no tits in Deadpool 2. They stayed away from all the sexy stuff for the sequel. They made it very family friendly, Deadpool 2. Well, they only have like one cum joke. They just show a baby's dick. They were very, very weak on Deadpool 2. Deadpool 1 had Deadpool getting pegged in the butt, okay? And he had a sex scene montage, okay? Yeah. Deadpool 2 was like a Mormon film compared to Deadpool 1.
Deadpool 2 was like when they had the Happy Lent joke for an entire movie.
But I love Deadpool 2 because I love Juggernaut. Oh my god, that was the best.
I haven't seen it yet, so...
So something that I noticed, or at least it seems to me, as if Solo was a lot less advertised than some of the other recent Star Wars films.
I would honestly say it was because of the problems in production. That's why this didn't come out in December. I think Disney expected this to bomb, and it didn't, so good for them.
I think Disney expected it to not bomb, but I think they expected this. They expected it to underperform. They knew they were putting it in a shit weekend. They knew it.
Mm-hmm. Well, so like, leading up to The Force Awakens, like everyone I knew was talking about it. Leading up to Rogue One, everyone I knew was talking about it. The Last Jedi, everyone I knew was talking about it. When Jeremy asked me if I wanted to see Solo with him, didn't even realize it was coming out. Like nobody I knew had been talking about it.
I was the only one talking.
It fell off of my radar.
Well,
And I feel like that probably has a lot to. If
they
other
own
people experience that, that's probably has to do with why it didn't make as much money.
all those older movies. Rogue One got 8 months of advertising before it came out.
Yeah,
Solo started after Black Panther. Okay, and they moved up Infinity War a week to try to give Solo more space to make money. Like Disney knew that they had to try to help stack the deck for Solo. They knew what they were walking into. All these YouTubers like Grace Randolph like saying Kathleen Kennedy is a dunce and doesn't know what she's doing. They're 100% wrong. Disney is playing a grand scheme the way Sheev Palpatine played a scheme. My conspiracy theory is that Disney on purpose is putting out 5 huge movies this summer to just kill every other studio's will to try and compete with them on that level. Okay? They want to turn everyone into Fox Searchlight if they can.
And that's really because, again, I'm mainly in expanded universe circles that are not particularly fond of the new canon. I'm a little more lenient towards it, or I'm kind of in the camp of I don't want to see it personally, but I don't really care if you see it. Whereas there's some others that go a little bit more hardline, like full on boycott than I do. But it's kind of a battle of, like you said, I really think they expected this. It's why they didn't put it in December, because the other 3 movies, again, in December, nothing's coming out. It's why that, as everyone said, this isn't indicative of the fans' backlash like I think everyone is saying it is. And I said this before the movie came out. The true test against how much they've pissed people off about The Last Jedi will not be Solo, it'll be Episode 9. If Episode 9 has a significant drop-off, then we'll know for sure that they pissed off the fans. But
everyone is still gonna pay to see what happened with Solo. I feel like was like a George Bush's famous quote. This was fans. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Fool me 3 times. Oh wait, it's Last Jedi. I'll try it. Fool me 4 times. I'm not a freaking pod racer service droid. I'm not an idiot. I'm not gonna fall for this. And those people, instead of watching it 3 times opening weekend like they usually do, and helping get Disney over the $120 million mark, they just saw it once, or they didn't even see it at all, and they're gonna see it next weekend.
I want to wrap this up by ranking. And Dylan, I'll just, no offense, I'll exclude you because you haven't seen a lot of these movies.
That's fine.
Ranking our theatrical release Star Wars films. Where does Solo rank?
I think we led with this, didn't we?
Yeah, we did.
But I want to see where I want to get a good idea as to what's like the gold standard and what's the shit standard.
Empire Strikes Back is top of the list. I would put Last Jedi in that second spot right there, number 2. Boom, boom, boom. Rian Johnson. I love Looper. Like, I have been watching Rian Johnson's movies since he put out Brick in Sundance. Like,
yeah,
Rian Johnson's a beautiful
film.
In fact, Rian Johnson is a lot like it's Ryan. Rian Johnson's a lot like Lucas. Like, if J.J. Abrams is Spielberg, Rian Johnson is George Lucas. He's very soft-spoken, okay? He's very, like, considerate and careful and thoughtful as a storyteller. And I love The Last Jedi. Then I'll put A New Hope after that, then Force Awakens, then Return of the Jedi, then Solo, 6, yeah. Then I guess Revenge of the Sith, Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones, Rogue One, Clone Wars animated movie.
Okay, so I consider Empire to be the gold standard. But A New Hope is almost tied with it because we wouldn't have anything else. Then Return of the Jedi is always going to have a soft spot in my heart because of the Ewoks, and that we got a lot more creature designs that we didn't get in any of the other films.
Yeah, and Nine Nub, man, Nine Nub, what's up?
Exactly. And we got the Gamorreans. We got all Jabba's palace. To me, I thought was so cool when I was a kid.
The
Like-
Falcon flies freaking perfectly for Lando when he flies it in Return of the Jedi. That must have been L3.
Then I put Rogue One up there.
Mhm.
Phantom Menace. Solo. Well, the thing is, Solo and Phantom Menace are tied for me.
Question.
I will always defend the Phantom Menace as not being terrible.
Question. How many times have you watched Rogue One since it came out?
6.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, because I feel like my problem with it, why I rank it so low, is because I feel like it doesn't have the rewatchability.
I like it. I rewatched it a few weeks ago. I really enjoy Rogue One.
Well, the ending scene of Rogue One is extremely rewatchable. It's the
Yeah,
only
but-
part of the movie I've seen actually.
But I only need that. But I only need that minute and 30 seconds. Like I don't gotta sit through everyone being depressed and confused and not understanding what's, what they're supposed to be doing in the plot.
So I'll give you an example of a movie that I really like that a lot of people don't. I like Alien 3 because I like movies about human suffering and
Ooh.
attempting to overcome it and failing.
Okay, I'm an Aliens guy because
Oh, I am
I think it's a disrespect to, after all the work Ripley did in Aliens, for David Fincher to kill off Newt, off screen.
Well, because Newton Hicks, it was a.
I know, yeah, I know, I know the plot, but I feel that choice.
Oh, I don't
And
agree with it either.
it's
If I had the
disrespectful.
choice- let's see. I was just reading it right now. Earth Hive is the true Alien 3, in my opinion. it's Hicks and Newt.
Yeah.
You
Are you
know?
excited for the Predator?
No, it looks like they ripped off Alien versus Predator Requiem. It
No.
looks like
Okay,
sheer trash.
Watch the Monster Squad, because basically the team that made the Monster Squad is making the Predator, and the fact that there's a kid in the trailer basically tells me that the Predator is going to be the Frankenstein in the new Monster Squad of Aliens. Like, that movie's going to be fun. It's going to feel like an 80s movie. I'm very excited. I have faith. I have faith.
I don't want to see that though. I like the Predator fucking in Predator 2 when he thinks about shooting the child. He got the shoulder cannon and he's like, "Oh, it's a toy. I guess I'll just repeat. Want some candy?"
What about
on
what about the Predator
subway."
movie where they were on a planet and it was like the most dangerous game?
Predators, that movie actually holds up so well. That movie
It
is
does.
very
I
underrated.
rewatched all of
That
it
movie's
not
so
so long
good.
ago because when I saw Predators, I didn't like it because it looked cheap with the heat vision. But looking back on it, it's a product of was that 2010 that came out?
Well,
Yeah.
not only that, but that movie, Robert Rodriguez produced it, and
Mhm.
basically Fox said, "We're gonna let you make a Predators movie, but you have to make it for this amount of money, which is very limited, and you have to get it done super fast because this date is 9 months away or something like that." They churned out that movie so fast, and the fact that it's as good as it is
Yeah, 'cause
a
they
huge
did the same
success.
thing with Alien 3, but Alien 3 fell apart. But that's also because they didn't allow David Fincher to edit his own movie.
Wasn't Alien 3 a Weinstein movie? I think, is it Dimension?
No,
No.
Alien
Oh,
3 is 20th Century Fox.
Okay. Yeah. I'm thinking about Hellraiser or something. Sorry, my
It's all
nerd.
good.
It's getting late at night for me in Miami.
It's
It's
all good, but
about 11 o'clock right now.
so I need to get back to my
Sorry, your
my
list.
ranking these real fast.
Rogue One.
I was at Phantom Menace, Solo,
Mhm.
Phantom Menace, kind of interchangeable right now. Not sure.
Okay.
Then Revenge of the Sith, Attack of the Clones. Well, I take that back. Force Awakens beats out Attack of the Clones. Reason Force
I should
Awakens
hope.
and Attack of the Clones are interchangeable is Force Awakens is just A New Hope again. And I really wanted them to take a bunch of risks with the Force Awakens that they didn't. It's a solid movie, but
They
it's
took a
interchangeable
lot
with-
of different risks with the Force Awakens.
Yeah,
They still took huge risks with the Force
they
Awakens.
did.
The fact that Disney had the balls to promote the movie like Luke Skywalker was going to be in it, and then give you silent freaking Luke at the end of the movie, giving you the most epic stare down of your life. Like, that is ballsy. That is a risky move. Okay, that
But
is
It was
risky,
stupid
and
risk
that felt
wouldn't pay off.
very Marvelly too.
But the thing is, it's another super weapon. It's a bigger Death Star. We got
Yeah, but
another guy, a tall guy in a mask. We got a whole bunch of things that are the same.
George gave us a second Death Star too. Man, it's a grand tradition.
I know, but like
It's poetry.
it was the don't
You put a lot.
that
You put a lot of it balls
stuff
on.
now. But like Attack of the Clones, the dialogue is infamously bad.
Mhm.
Infamously bad, and they intermix. Like not sure, but I don't like Last Jedi at all. That gets ranked below that because Last Jedi should have only been 2 hours, not 2.5 hours. It was a mess. The only person who had true character development was Poe and maybe Kylo Ren.
And Finn,
Ray-
who got to kiss a girl, and he'd never kissed a girl, and he learned to not just run away and act.
He learned that in
instinctively.
Force Awakens.
No, he didn't learn that in Force Awakens. He got chopped in half before he could finish learning his lesson.
But like,
Like
the
Kylo Ren.
fact is that he
Yet the
stood
movie's
up
not
to
the
him.
hero. Yeah, but Finn's story is that he's learning. He's not the big hero. He's not the guy who's gonna pull out the lightsaber and win at the end. He's the guy who's on the team.
He's the guy who's
He's the Han Solo.
would-be girlfriend is going to run a
He's a
kamikaze
defector
into
from the
him with
Empire.
a speeder, and then say, "This is what we do. We save the ones we love." And I'm like, "Really? Because you just tried to fucking run him over."
No,
He had
she
really
did save
bizarre,
him.
like backwards character development.
That was my problem. The whole
He
Canto
had,
fight.
if he had died, the movie would have been pointless.
I don't know.
If he had
I-
died, that movie would have been pointless. If he had died, that entire movie would have been entirely pointless.
Well, you see,
Because you would have invested
it was entirely-
40 minutes of the movie into a storyline of a character that is going to die. Okay? That would have basically have made him a preamble for Rose. That makes no sense.
But at the same time, his character doesn't go anywhere. Rose's character doesn't go anywhere. The Canto Bite thing really
They
inevitably
do.
is a waste of
They
time.
learn to failure. This is the Empire. That was the Empire Strikes Back. This is our heroes learning from loss.
But the thing is, there are consequences. I will give you that. There are major consequences for the Resistance. But mainly it's due to stupidity on Admiral Holdo's part.
That's not true. It's not stupidity. It's her character. She is a certain type of character in her book. I think it's called Constellation or something. Where she's in, they explain she's basically the Luna Lovegood of the rebellion.
Yeah,
Okay.
and it didn't make sense why because she's introduced in Leia, Princess of Alderaan, and I hated her character in that. But it was like she was just a goofy kid, and it just felt out of place. In this, she just makes straight up. Why is Poe not involved? I get that Poe is,
He got demoted. He got Princess Leia blown up. He put
but the thing is, it
in
would have
danger
been
and wiped out half the fleet, bro. When does a guy that wipe out half the fleet get entitled to command decisions?
But it would have made sense to say, "Hey, this is what we're doing, and
It
you're not
would've-
allowed to do it."
That would make sense in a situation that is not extremely stressful. They are running. This is the end of the Resistance. This is like the final, this is the most stressful moment of these characters' lives right now. They are facing certain death. Freaking Hux's ship is called the Finalizer. He's got a hard on to kill them. Like they
Oh,
know the stakes are like so stressful. And what's Poe's big plan? He gets 5 people to defect with him. Like Poe
Yeah,
also doesn't have a full deck either. He's not perfect.
No, and that's the best part of the movie. Poe's storyline is the best. Well, Luke's storyline is the best part of Last Jedi. Luke's becoming one with the Force is probably the most beautiful thing I've seen
Okay.
in film.
Yeah, staring at the twin suns and
Oh
you know,
yeah,
Come on, that's gorgeous.
There's some beautiful scenes in it, but
And then also the poetry of Luke received a hologram of his sister, and he's sending a hollow projection to save his sister
yeah,
at the end of the movie. It's just beautiful, poetic, rhyming, George Lucas-ian filmmaking that happened in The Last Jedi.
Yeah, and then there's the couple things that are really dumb, like Leia flying through space after she froze over.
Which they did in Rebels.
Yeah, that
Kanan
was
Jarrus
stupid
did
in
it.
Rebels too. That was stupid when Kanan got thrown out in space and flew back.
But people
You shouldn't
do it.
be flying out
I
in space
think
and expecting to
in-
live.
In Avengers Infinity War, the Maw should have done that. He got punked out. We already proved you can get sucked back into your spaceship if you have enough force powers.
It's so bad. But the thing is, this is my problem with the new canon, is that Leia was a Jedi in the EU, and they haven't really given a good explanation as to why she didn't become a Jedi. And was
Because
part of
she had to be involved in politics.
well, she was
she
involved
had
in politics in the EU too, and
I-
was a Jedi.
I got you, but not a lot of people can carry full-time Jedi job duties and full-time managing the new galactic government you're setting up and dealing with the aftermath of the most corrupt regime in existence. Okay?
I mean, it's better than dealing with the aftermath Chuck Wendig wrote.
Like a lot of the EU stuff with building like the Jedi Academy and all that stuff, like it's wishful thinking that obviously in Force Awakens they told you what happened after Battle of Endor. It wasn't all just, optimistic, happy endings over and over and over.
But it wasn't in the EU either. But
No,
Chewbacca got killed. Oh, I'm so sad.
Akbar died actually as well, kind of a similar way. But I think
But Clone Wars gets the worst. It doesn't have a good plot. We have Stinky the Hutt. We have
Zero Hut, come on, he's the man. He's a little cutie. He's a proto Porg in a way.
Oh God,
He's got the eyes.
the porgs are
Zero the Hut.
zero, terrible.
you should attach your Porg to a drone because they can
fucking-
fly apparently.
One of my least favorite things that Filoni did in the Clone Wars, which is Anakin Dooku fighting before Revenge of the Sith. I don't like that shit. That shit shouldn't happen. It makes the whole lot-
Anakin and Dooku fought in Attack of the Clones.
Yeah, well, no, like they're not supposed
Well,
to
not supposed to meet again till he gets his head chopped off.
Yeah,
In
well,
your opinion,
the thing that I liked about the EU
Mhm.
with that is that they came so close. So many books, so many comics where Anakin's about to get to Dooku
Mhm.
and Dooku escapes and Anakin loses his shit.
but the clone.
One more step to the dark side, like
But the Clone Wars explained how Qui-Gon Jinn, learned to teach people to speak from beyond the grave. It
that
brought
part
back
was
Liam
awesome.
Neeson.
There's
like-
some good shit in Clone Wars. Like all the
Like-
clone stories are pretty good in Clone Wars.
Mhm.
Ahsoka's not good in Clone Wars.
She
The-
has some dramatic and
She has
interesting
some good
episodes.
moments in
And-
season 5.
And the way that her storyline wraps up, it really gives you perspective into how radicalized Anakin was getting against the Jedi Order, and how they were totally not really giving him the communication that he deserves.
And then there's the pacifistic Mandalorians were weird. They did the best they could with Satine, but Satine was a been there, done that character. They had already done that with Obi-Wan prior to that. The Maul stuff was wonky with Savage Opress. That name alone is just
Is that how you're supposed to pronounce it, Savage?
Yeah,
really?
it's Savage Opress.
I refuse. This is savage. He's savage. He's
Yeah,
Randy
no,
Savage.
Savage Oppress, but it's Savage Opress.
So that it doesn't,
So it's not
doesn't
human.
sound too
Yeah, I got you.
corny.
It's being subtle.
So that So that Vince McMahon doesn't sue him. I got it.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
But let's segue out of this. Let's get into what we're reading, which Michael doesn't know how to read.
I read manga.
He reads the mangoes.
Well,
Dylan
Read
hasn't
those
read anything in a while.
Well, I read a lot. I have because I'm doing them timeline order. I have the Phantom Menace novelization, and I know it's good. I know the prequel novelizations are excellent. I just don't have the interest yet because
it's good,
I don't know.
It's really good. It's actually a really good audiobook too.
Mhm.
It's
I didn't know
actually
it was
an
an
unabridged
audiobook.
audiobook from the 90s. It's a shocking
It's an
twist.
unabridged?
It's unabridged.
Wow, I'll have to look into that because I just finished Mall Lockdown about a month ago, and I actually thought it was really good. Shadowhunter was good. Cloak of Deception
Oof.
was, I think, Lucino's only misstep.
The Cloak of Deception, though, is pretty good.
It was good. It's just I had trouble getting involved into the plot.
You have
But-
to look at it as this. It's like the first Lucino book.
I guess it's fair.
It's before he wrote what was that? Edge of Victory? Was that him? He wrote the Edge of Victory duology.
Yeah, he wrote the Edge of Victory
and
duology
Unifying Force. Which
in Unifying Force, which, yeah, I did like that. I did like that Vergier was in it because I didn't expect Vergier to be in it, and I'm like, oh, Vergier, and she's not evil. This is refreshing. This is before she became
you
evil.
like the Senator Greebleep's cameo?
I didn't see that. I did like because I read Plagueis first, so I did like that it went into more of what happened at the Ariadu Summit because that was something that was mentioned in Plagueis a few times, but they never got into.
Yeah, well, the Eridu Summit's kind of big deal. But Senator Greebleeps, for those of you who don't know, is when in Phantom Menace, there's a bunch of ETs that have a cameo in the Senate, and their senator is just Spielberg's name spelled backwards.
of course.
It was a joke that Lucas had with Spielberg, and Lucino put it in. But did you get the George Sabak cameo
In Cloak of Deception?
in Cloak of Deception?
I did not.
Yeah, George Sabak, before he's the crazy clone in Outbound Flight. He's in there. But then again, Mall Lockdown has Kamari Vosa from the Bando Gora, the bounty hunter video
Yeah,
game.
and I actually have an issue with how the book timeline, because I think the book timeline is wrong because both Cloak of Deception and Maul Shadowhunter, I think are happening at roughly the same time because they both end pretty much when Phantom Menace begins. But then in the books it says you should read Maul Lockdown next, and Maul Lockdown doesn't end. It's like there's no possible way in Shadowhunter because at the end of Shadowhunter, Obi-Wan has seen the remnants of that final battle, went back to the temple and said, hey, I need to report on this. And they said, hold on to your report. You need to go to Naboo to negotiate this trade deal.
I've always disagreed with that timeline too, because I think Lockdown happens before.
Yeah,
Just because of how Plagueis interacts with Palpatine in Lockdown makes more sense before Shadowhunter.
Exactly.
How is Maul's character depicted in these? Is he still stoic? Like, how does
Yes,
his character
so
develop?
In
Does his character develop in these
Shadowhunter,
books?
Shadowhunter isn't from Maul's perspective most of the time. It's like Maul is the antagonist in Shadowhunter. It's
But his
mainly
name's
about,
in the title?
Well, it is in the title. But
Okay.
it's mainly about Lorne Pavin, who is it's mainly about Lorne Pavin, and basically Lorne Pavin learns information about the incoming attack on the Trade Federation, and he's trying to sell this information. And Palpatine learns of this and says, "Hey, he can't be telling people about our plans, so Maul, you got to go kill him." And it's basically the story of it's basically Maul trying to kill this guy, and like the story of him getting away. So
And-
Maul is in it, and you do get little snippets of him, but
So does Maul
Again,
kill
it's-
Pavin?
well, obviously yes, because if Maul doesn't kill Pavin,
it becomes
Phantom
a
Menace doesn't.
problem later on with his Pavit's son is the main character in
Jax Pavan.
Coruscant Knights.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah, the
Okay.
weird noir Star Wars books that aren't that good.
And then, so I thought Shadowhunter did a good job with, again, keeping Maul mysterious and because you get a little bit into him. He was very loyal to Palpatine. He was very overconfident in his own abilities, and he was very like, I want to kill the Jedi. Because there's a Jedi that does. There's two Jedi actually that do find Lauren, and he has to fight them both. Again, they don't make it because if they don't make it, Phantom Menace. They make it. Phantom Menace doesn't happen. But so it's very in character, I thought. However, Lockdown, and you recently read it.
Yeah, I read it. Ooh, this is pushing 2 years ago. I read Lockdown.
I think Lockdown, again, his character made sense. I just think it got too far into like.
He got a little OP in. Well, first of all, Lockdown is one of the most gory Star Wars books I've ever read. It's truly disgusting at times. He rips a Wampa's heart out with his bare hands at one point, because Lockdown's plot is that Maul's stuck on this prison barge called the Purge, and the inmates are forced to fight each other, and it's televised on the black market.
So you're telling me that Luke could have done a Kali Ma maneuver on the Wampa at the beginning of Empire Strikes Back,
Well, no,
and that it would have worked. Okay.
Punched it that hard that his fist went through it, and he ripped its heart out.
And he did this without using the Force.
Yes,
because
that's the big thing, is because he goes by the greatest name ever in a book, Jagannath. That's his name he goes by, and he's trying to find this person on the Purge. And like he fights all sorts of things, like he fights a Vong.
Okay.
Before they're introduced, and
yeah,
which is pretty cool. I dig that.
But what is like? So you read the other Coruscant Night book as well with his son?
I
haven't
read
gotten
of it. It's
okay. So do the two stories, like at least from Pavin's and his son's perspective, do they complement each other? Like, do they share the same themes? Does his son learn the lesson his father couldn't? Like,
okay, so his son doesn't know what happened to his dad for a long time. And by the way, these are all written by Michael Reeves. Michael Reeves writes all of these.
Yeah, it's called the Jax Pavan. I think there's 6 books. That the first one is Shadowhunter following his father. What happens is Jax Pavan is a non-force sensitive who essentially works at the Jedi Temple as like their security force, as part of the Jedi Temple security force.
He's Jedi PD.
The Jedi find out that his son is force sensitive. So they want to train him, but because Jedi can have no attachments, they basically have to let him go, and he can never see his son again. So he kind of becomes resentful of the Jedi for basically, because he's like, I've been working for you guys for years, and you just and like I've been outcast and I can't see what. So he kind of becomes a little bit of that.
So the book highlights how the Jedi Order had done the failure stuff that Luke talks about in The Last Jedi, that they don't understand connection and can't get past their own dogma.
Yeah, in a way.
Cool. But like there's it goes Shadowhunter, then in a way the MedStar duology, because I5's in there, which is the robot that shows up throughout, and then it goes into the Coruscant Knights trilogy, which ends in a book called The Last Jedi.
Ironically.
Cool.
Actually, there was a tweet from Mark Hamill where right before Last Jedi came out, he said like, "Hey, the novelization was released like 5 years ago or something," and like spoiler alert. And
yeah, do we want to get into what I've been reading before we have to end this show for being fucking 2.5 hours?
Oh, it has been 2 hours.
It's been 2 hours. So I've been reading The Paradise Snare, which is book 1 in A.C. Crispin's Han Solo trilogy, which has a very young Han Solo who escapes being basically a slave and goes to a planet to be a smuggler. And it's before he meets Chewbacca. A couple chapters in. Dylan, you're muted.
There we go.
He was getting force choked, I think. It's all right. My
No, it's
bad.
just whenever I cough, I mute my mic, so I'm not like coughing into the thing. I guess
yeah.
I forgot it, but
Not like
is
last
that
podcast.
the? I guess you're only a few chapters in, so you don't know. I remember in one of the trilogies, he straight up murders someone, like,
That's in Brian Daly's. That's in Han Solo at Star's End. I know what you're talking about.
and it's a very like it was written around the time of the Han shot first controversy, so it was.
Well, it was written. It was one of the first EU books.
Oh,
Brian-
it was okay.
Yeah, that was. It was written in the 78, 79.
Okay, so it was before that. I'm getting the two trilogies mixed up.
You're getting the AC Crispin one, is what you're
Yeah, because
thinking.
the AC Crispin was the '90s one.
Yes.
Okay.
Which sadly AC Crispin's not with us anymore, which is a real shame because I'd like to meet her and thank her for.
There's a
writing
few
this wonderful
authors that
book.
we've lost over the years.
Yeah. Because I think
Um,
Brian Daly's not with us anymore either.
Let me look that up.
And of course Jason Aaron isn't. It's a real shame. Jason Aaron writing some of the saddest Star Wars books ever, as well
Aaron
as
Olsen, you
the
mean?
funniest moments ever. But yeah, I'm enjoying it. I just finished Last Shot. But mainly right now I've been going through this big Aliens novel kick,
Cool.
which has been really interesting because Star Wars has such a nice continuity and Aliens is
Yeah.
50 shades of fucked up.
I have an Aliens comic book like anthology that I picked up off of Loot Vault that's on my stack of things to read. That was like a
There's some-
great deal.
There's some solid Aliens work out there. Part of the problem is they started like the comics started a year after Aliens came out, and they
Ugh.
start Hicks and Newt, but Newt's an adult.
Yeah.
So when Alien 3 came out, it fucked it up big time.
Yeah.
Then they kind of just rolled with it and just kind of retconned a little bit by changing their names to Wilkes and Billy instead
Yeah.
of Hicks and Newt. So in the novel, it's Wilkes and Billy, but the comic adaptation, it's Hicks and Newt. And so it takes me a while to read it because my brain has to process that. But then again, it gets fucked up. Technically, it gets fucked up with the first Alien versus Predator movie. Because that's
Yeah,
how
that movie tears up everything.
Yeah, and then Requiem doesn't help. And then
Yeah.
we get to Prometheus, which puts the final nail in the coffin of any sort of continuity.
Well, Prometheus was a giant setup movie, and I was hoping, Covenant would, stick the landing that was unclear in Prometheus,
Mhm.
but it didn't. It just muddied
They
up the timeline even worse, and was horrible.
Wouldn't allow it to. That's part of the problem with Covenant. I love Covenant as a standalone film. I think it's a lot better than Alien Resurrection.
No, I would rather watch Joss Whedon's Alien Resurrection than Alien Covenant any day. Alien Covenant freaking ends on a shower joke. Danny McBride is in an entire Aliens movie, and he doesn't get one joke that makes someone laugh. He doesn't get one bit of humor. Alien Covenant is a travesty, my friend.
I don't know. James Franco gets killed before he's ever really on screen, so I don't have to
They
deal
told more character development in that movie, in the pre-material stuff before the movie, than what was actually in the movie.
Well, okay. Have you read Covenant Origins?
No, I am a pure Alien film and supplementary auxiliary promotional material video on YouTube guy.
Okay, don't read Alien Covenant Origins. I just finished it. It's one of the worst things I've ever read.
Oh my god.
But it came out
Cool.
with Alien Covenant?
Yes.
Okay.
It's one of the worst things I've ever read because there's no alien. There's
Ugh.
barely any of the main cast. Daniels, the main character of the
Mhm.
movie, is in 3 chapters.
Yikes. So it's not no David at all?
Oh, no, David.
Walter?
Walter has 1 chapter at the end.
Ugh.
But David and Walter, my 2 favorite characters of that movie. David's not in it at all. and Walter's in the last fucking.
Also, what I thought was so horrible about Alien Covenant that I think is Ridley Scott just being an old man. Is that the ending? There was a way you could have ended that. They already set up how to end that movie in a dramatic, scary way. David didn't have to put her down and say anything creepy at all. All he had to do was play Take Me Home Country Roads, and everyone would have left that theater feeling so creeped out and ending on a cool song, and it would have made David seem even more fucked up.
Well, okay. The other thing about that doesn't work is the second chest burster coming out and suddenly it's a full alien on the ship at the end.
Yeah. There's no rhyme or reason to the pansexual aliens that are in the Aliens franchise.
But like,
according to Ridley Scott, James Cameron understood. He understood how things should be diagrammed correctly.
Well, Ridley Scott put that weird. I just rewatched Alien yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
There's a weird possible rape scene in Alien with the other woman actor with the tail goes up her leg. That's super gross, and I've never noticed it before.
And he leaned it into it way hard in Covenant. He wanted to get it in the shower.
Yeah, it was fucking weird.
Mm-hmm. Well,
Prometheus had the weird goop that came out of Holloway's eye, and then he fucks her, and then she has a squid baby.
Well, I at least appreciate Prometheus was like delving into religious themes and actually trying to think about stuff in a more, less than just we're just space truckers kind of way.
Yeah, like Alien has its own place and Prometheus has its own place.
But then Covenant just doubled back down on space truckers.
I don't know. I like Covenant for what it was. It's no Alien. It's no Aliens. I'd rank it with Alien 3. What's sad is we'll never get that Neil Blomkamp Alien movie.
And no, you never will. Neil Blomkamp has been he was releasing a bunch of like his own sci-fi shorts and stuff.
Yes,
and some of them were pretty cool and interesting.
He's trying to get one of them funded for a feature length, which is pretty exciting. But
I'm reading. I just picked up a stack of my local comic shop, Max Comics, is going out of business, so I just bought like a crap ton of Poe Dameron comics.
Okay.
For like $1 each, and I also picked up a copy of the first issue of the DJ comic they had for Last Jedi, and it was so bad.
It's terrible.
It's written in the most confusing way possible,
and sometimes he has a speech impediment, and sometimes he doesn't.
Yeah,
like in the movie, and it's obnoxious.
Horribly written. Well, I was trying to analyze it, the speech impediment, because I heard someone complaining about that like that's him, that's his way of manipulating people or grifting people or something. But
I don't know. Honestly,
that's not clear.
Ryan Johnson's like, can you do a take without the speech impediment, and can you do one with the speech impediment? And then someone else edited it?
What probably happened is they cast him and they expected him to be Mumbles, or they thought that he wouldn't be Mumbles from The Usual Suspect. And Benicio del Toro tried to act like Mumbles from The Usual Suspects. And Ryan Johnson liked it a little bit, but ultimately he had to set up the plot line that somebody is profiteering off of these great Star Wars. And it's not only Disney and Lucasfilm; it's apparently rich gamblers in Canto Bight.
Yeah. So how are you enjoying Poe?
I haven't opened any Poes yet. I just grabbed the DJ, but I think I have like issue 12 through like 22, 23. I don't know.
So
good run.
And Poe is a little of this, but mostly this. Especially in the later issues, I'm behind by like 3 issues. So where Poe is right now is right after Last Jedi, and he's talking about Force Awakens. That's the current arc.
Okay.
but a lot of it is lead up. Like he's trying to find Lorsan Tekka
Okay.
throughout.
I wonder
and
if because they announced Poe as a main character in Star Wars Resistance.
it might tie in. They might do some tie-ins.
Yeah. I wonder if any of those comics characters will also get a chance to get their, fleshing
I would hope.
out.
Specifically, I'm a big Snap guy
Okay.
because I like that actor because he's done a lot of garbage B movies for like Asylum and stuff, and he's always a good actor.
Mhm.
So it's like a rarity in Asylum films.
Yeah.
So like I've learned to cherish him, and when he was in Force Awakens, I was super happy that he wasn't doing an Asylum movie.
I guess someone casting at Lucasfilm is a big Asylum fan too.
Yeah. So let's see.
Has Asylum done a Star Wars, version? Like, because I know they had Transmorphers and different
They
stuff.
did the Sharknado 3. No, Sharknado 4 was the Fourth Awakens.
Yeah, but nothing specifically like
No, because
Space Saga thing.
a cease and assist. I have a feeling
How could they?
Disney would put their foot down and say, "Don't you dare desecrate our stuff! Don't you fucking dare! We know you made Transmorphers and other garbage." But do we want to do questions, Dylan, or do we want to just skip it?
Do we even have any questions from last time?
Why don't you look it up? I had to read them last time.
I always have to look it up.
Dylan, you fucking were lazy last time, and I had to look them up. Don't give
No, I specifically remember every single time we've done questions, it's been me looking them up.
That's not true at all. It's 50-50.
Well, maybe in the old days, back when we did
I read
these
them last
bi-weekly.
time. We may have one, which will probably take half an hour.
Right.
Dylan, come on, Dylan.
I also have to scroll through 10 years of your videos for the last time we did this podcast.
It was March.
Well, while we stall for Dylan, you can check out my podcast on Apple Podcasts. It's called The Vundacast. We do a show. We're trying to get 4 out a month. I have no consistency in when I can put them out because my life is kind of chaotic. But I try to get 4 out by the end of the month. I do a show with my wife where we usually always diverge and talk about Star Wars or aliens. And I also do a show with my friend Mr. J where we usually talk about the DC film universe and TMNT and Power Rangers and Marvel and like anything comic book related. I also do a show called A Whole Lot Of with 2 directors who directed season 3, episode 3 of Ash versus the Evil Dead, the Mesa Brothers. And that show is like a free-for-all bonanza of all things nerdy and horror and 80s and 90s. And our host, Andres, is a self-proclaimed Marvel tard. So if anybody watching is a fellow Marvel tard, as he dubs it, you might enjoy him trying to piss me off all the time on that show. As well, we do have one EU guy who edits our podcast and shows up a bunch, and he's Blockbuster Guy Frank, and he has a channel called Oh It's Blockbuster Guy, and he's young. He's in his early 20s, so he's still catching up on a lot of EU stuff, but he's our resident EU defender on our podcast. And we actually did a great episode 7 commentary where we had 3 haters and 3 lovers of Star Wars and 1 person who is neutral and really doesn't give a fuck. And we all did a crazy argument, debate commentary for Force Awakens after it came out that you guys might dig. But thank you guys so much for giving me a chance to be on your show and be on your podcast. And I've had a great time talking with you guys. And I want to just reiterate, because I've seen this weekend that Solo came out, there's been a lot of it's felt like the fan base has been at war with itself. And I want to remind everybody that when you get a bunch of people that like Star Wars, whatever version of Star Wars they like, in a room together, they have more things in common than they actually don't have in common, even though it doesn't feel that way. We're all just, still Star Wars fans.
Exactly.
I'm running for president in the year 2020.
Uh-oh.
Whoa!
I know.
Waru Suck it, Trump.
competition.
Someone's going against Waru. Uh-oh.
All right, so we only have one person who asked questions, but they asked 4 questions in typical Dark Snovia fashion.
I should have known that he would be involved in this. Darth Riddler himself appears.
Darth Riddler himself. Though they're not novels this time. So
he's being merciful.
So first question, what would EU Luke think of Jake Skywalker? I don't think he would really think anything of it. I think he would just be like, okay, and move on with his day.
Yep.
Other than Karen Travis, what other authors do you think, whether it's in the New Canada Legends, are not team players?
Chuck Wendig. Chuck Wendig by far. Because everyone's had to fucking write around his atrocious trilogy. His fucking Aftermath trilogy is baffling on multiple levels. To a certain... Are we just talking writers?
Yeah, because I would add Dave Filoni to that list, but I think that's too obvious.
He didn't... Dave Filoni now is different than Dave Filoni in 2008. I'm just going to put that out there.
It's interesting because I saw this YouTube video that got put out where basically it was someone juxtaposing Lucasfilm's announcement from when Disney bought it, and George and Kathleen saying that they're doing things for the fans and they're making their decisions based on the fans and blah blah, and then cut to 2018 and it's Ryan and Filoni and Kathleen Kennedy, and they're just saying we're dedicated to the story and we're trying to satisfy the story. We're not trying to just serve as fans anymore. Blah blah blah. So there has been definitely company policy has changed.
Yeah,
I don't know if part of that, what I see with that was Force Awakens. It's been said Kathleen Kennedy said, we need a movie now. So they wrote a movie. They wrote one movie. They didn't write it with a plan at that point. They wrote Force Awakens. Mainly, the guy who wrote Toy Story 3 wrote a draft. J.J. Abrams said it was garbage and rewrote it.
Michael Arndt.
And then they went from there. So that's why there was a bunch of things set up in Force Awakens that didn't necessarily pay off in Last Jedi.
But they still could pay off in auxiliary material down the line.
No, because J.J. Abrams is involved in Episode 9.
But that's why she picked J.J. Because J.J. he's made Lost work. He's good at setting up. He's good at setting up a lot of good toys. That's J.J.'s strength as a filmmaker.
Very social media friendly director. I have no problem. J.J. Abrams was their best choice.
I remember
leaving Tarantino to do it.
I remember leaving the Star Trek 2009 reboot, and just everybody leaving that theater just saying, "Oh my God, can you imagine if J.J. made a Star Wars movie? How perfect it would be." That was the resounding sentiment I heard that week.
Yeah, I remember that.
Okay, 2009, J.J. Abrams, Star Trek. That was the first trailer for The Force Awakens.
Yeah. All right. What's the next question, Dylan?
Third question is...
Wait. I have one joke that I wrote for Darth Riddler while we were processing that, which is Darth Riddler would say, riddle me this, riddle me that. Who's afraid of the smiling loft cat? Air horns. Okay, I'm done. I'm sorry. That was horrible.
His third question is, have you ever played Star Wars Connect? I'm pretty sure all 7 people who bought Star Wars Connect have not played Star Wars Connect.
Yeah, no. I watched the JonTron review when it came out.
Lastly, does anyone listen to the audiobooks of Star Wars? If so, who's your favorite narrator?
Okay, I listen to a lot of these. Jonathan Davis is my absolute favorite as a narrator. but Mark Thompson does the best voices.
I would agree
And
with
January
that sentiment.
Lavoie is not that bad.
Hmm.
I think she gets hated on the most because she can't
Because
do a
the only
man's
book she's
voice
done
very
about it.
well. But she's a woman. And it's
Yeah.
not like the other two do women's voices well either.
Now,
Pivot question. Marvel this year put out like a Wolverine podcast where it's like basically like a radio play podcast telling a Wolverine noirish sort of story.
Oh, like a radio dramatization?
Yeah, it's basically just a podcast, but it's telling a radio drama version of Wolverine, and they got the guy who was Richard Armitage from The Hobbit. He's their podcast Marvel Universe Wolverine voice. How would you feel if Star Wars built like a podcast Star Wars
They've done
universe line?
dramatizations before. They actually, Mark Hamill and Anthony Daniels and Billy D. Williams came back to do a radio dramatization of the original trilogy
Wow, I did not know that.
in the
Force
late
books got a
80s,
full cast.
early 90s. Although Mark Hamill didn't do Return of the Jedi.
Okay.
They did it. The Dark Forces books by William C. Ditz were all dramatized.
Cool.
Crimson Empire, the comic, was dramatized. The Dark Empire, at least the first two Dark Empire stories are dramatized.
So Disney owns podcasts that they could put out right now if they wanted to. Awesome.
Yeah, they have a whole bunch of stuff that they did dramatizations of.
It just as audiobooks became more popular, it's easier and cheaper to have one person do all the voices and like just
Mhm.
have one recording session, which is basically what Random House when I talked to them back in 2015 about this told me that it's simply easier. Now, I do agree with both of your picks, Jeremy. Mark Thompson is simply the best at voices, and I mean, yeah,
I
they're
feel like
both
though
really-
in Star Wars.
Hmm?
No, I'm sorry. Go Dylan. Go.
yeah, they're both, and Jonathan Davis is by far like really good as well.
Well, Jonathan Davis is the voice of Darth Bane, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, he definitely is.
He is
And-
he is Darth Bane.
And I think that the reason that everyone hates January Lavoie isn't because she's a bad voice actress. It's just she's had the displeasure of doing the audiobooks for some of the worst books in Star Wars.
Yeah, she's gotten some decent stuff recently.
Mhm.
What they did with the Last Shot book is Mark Thompson does the majority of it, but January Lavoie does the Lando backstory.
Okay.
And Jose, the author, actually does part of the audiobook, and his stuff's the weakest. But he's not he's not a narrator. He's the author.
Like ideally, as you say, I think that ideally, I think that the audiobook should have 2 voice actors. 3 the dream team would be to have Jonathan Davis narrate, Mark Thompson do male voices, January Lavoie do female voices. That would be the dream team because Mark Thompson neither Mark Thompson or Davis can do female voices, and January Lavoie can't do male voices. But it's a good
But,
mix. But
these
three people,
these-
yeah.
these recordings don't have any music cues or sound
they
effects.
They have
They do.
They're like an
Okay.
event.
Cool. Yeah.
Sound
That's
effects.
the dream.
Williams.
Yeah, they have Star Wars sound effects. They have the Star Wars. They have licensed Star Wars music because they have the rights to do
only
that.
downside is they don't have new stuff. Like the newest music they put in there is from Revenge of the Sith.
Okay, yeah, and they're not making any original music for this.
No.
I believe the Marvel podcast it's creating original music for it, and Disney could totally do it if they wanted to.
Well, it's also Audible is starting to do audio dramas just for Audible. Like they took a couple of the Alien books that came out in the last couple of years, and they made audio dramas out of them. They did it with some X-Files books too. So I think the audio dramas are going to come back.
Yeah, and it's I actually, again, I pretty much agree with you there that it's going that way because I know I'm not the only person. We're not the only people who have talked about the problem of having one voice actor do the entire book is kind of jarring because there's some certain voices they can't do. And it really just comes down to a production pipeline thing with Random House. But if it's Audible doing it, then, I mean, sure.
Okay. Is there one more question?
No, that was all. That was the
Okay.
4.
I'm going to cut it here because I have a bunch of cats I have to get into the house.
I've needed to shit for the last like 50 minutes.
I have to also, but I didn't want to.
That's what my Riddler reference was about. It was your cats are shitting. I knew it. I felt it through the force. It all makes sense.
Dios mío.
All right. It was good to have you on, Steven.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, man. I appreciate it.
Dylan.
It was a good time, Jeremy, Dylan, Michael. You guys rock, man.
All right.
May the force be with you.
We'll
Take
see you
it easy.
soon.
Later.
Later.